Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money, with your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 312 of Screw the Commute podcast. Today we're going to talk about website readability. All right, now, so you ignored my other advice on building cheap world-class websites, and let's say you put several $1,000s into your new site, and you're all proud of it because it has a giant picture of the ocean that takes up the entire first screen, and you gave the designer reams of content because, of course, you read Content is King. And it has every bell and whistle a website can do nowadays. Maybe it even do your dishes. Well, after it's up for 6 months, you look at your statistics and find that you're getting plenty of traffic, but they're not staying very long. Then you hire me to review your site and you leave the Zoom call in tears because I tore the site apart for being virtually impossible to read. This is ridiculous. I don't want this to happen to you, and I don't want to make you cry. So do what I tell you in this episode, and your site will be a joy to read. And I guarantee you, visitors will stay longer to absorb what you have to say. And that gives you an infinitely greater chance to turn them into a customer or client. So buckle up, and we'll get into details in a minute. Now, I hope you didn't miss episode 311. That was link bait and how it can help your site. Now, I'm not talking about clickbait, which is a bad thing. Link bait is a good thing. And if you want traffic, free traffic to your website, you should be spending a little bit of time every week on link bait. All right, how would you like to hear your own voice here on Screw the Commute? Well, the show's helped you out at all in your business or given you ideas to help you start a business. We want to hear about it. Visit screwthecommute.com and look for a little blue sidebar that says send a voicemail. Click on it and talk into your phone or computer and tell me how the show's helped you. Also put your website on there so you can get a great big shout out in front of thousands of people on a future episode of Screw the Commute. Now, grab a copy of our automation ebook. It saved me millions of keystrokes and allowed me to steal customers from competitors who were too slow to get back to people. So this book has all the things that I use to automate my business, and we sell it for $27, but you get it for just listening to the show. So grab it at screwthecommute.com/automate free. screwthecommute.com/automate free. And while you're at it, grab a copy of our podcast app. You can take us with you on the road, put it on your cell phone and tablet. And we've got video and screen capture training so you can use all the fancy features. So catch that at screwthecommute.com/app. APP. All right, people are still freaking out about working at home. Their kids are stuck at home. We don't know if schools are going to open or what, but I'll tell you what, there's one thing you could do for your kids. I mean, starting at, I'd say 12 years old, is start teaching them about internet and marketing and selling and having their own business. Well, I've formalized this training that I have been living for 26 years. So this is not any kind of, I just started making some ebooks yesterday and I want to tell you how to get rich. All right. I got rich by doing this for 26 years, and I got rich actually in the first 4 years. So look, this is real. This is not hocus pocus. This is an in-demand skill. And I know you've been brainwashed to have traditional college for your kids and all this stuff. Well, that is old school now, folks. They're just teaching the kids how to protest. They have no usable skills when they get out. They've got a fortune in debt, or you've gone into debt or mortgaged your house, and your kids get out with no usable skills. Or even for your own, if you're in business or you need a side hustle or you want to retire and have some income coming in, check out my school, imtcva.org. It's distance learning. You won't be stuck in debt for the rest of your life to pay the tuition for this school. And it's just so powerful. And the people that are in it and have graduated are doing great things. So check it out at imtcva.org. And if you want to talk to me about it, I'm very accessible. Get in touch with me and we'll discuss your future online. One other thing I want to tell you, it's a great legacy gift for your kids, grandchildren, nephews, and nieces, because if you give them just money and they blow it on a car or something worthless, you're not helping them that much. Get them a scholarship to this school, and they'll have a career and their own money in a skill that's in demand. See, every company on earth needs this skill. So, I mean, I'm just so excited about it. I'm sorry to use up half of the podcast on it, but I've just seen this and seen the great things it can do for people of all ages. And they're stuck here in this pandemic wondering how they're going to pay their bills. Well, I'm not. And many people that are doing this aren't, because they can keep selling around the world, even if there's bad stuff going on. All right, that's my first high horse for today. All right, let's get into the main event, website readability. Now, I'm not talking about usability. That's an entirely different subject, which I'll cover in another episode. See, I've critiqued, conservatively more than 10,000 websites over the last 23 years or so. And I see many of these same mistakes over and over again. It's another reason I have such a disdain for web designers who, while impressing you with how pretty your site looks, they actually hurt you in reaching your goals for the site. I mean, anybody could research what I'm going to tell you about today. My question is, why didn't your web designer, who's supposed to be doing this as a profession, research and implement these things on your site? It's just beyond me. All right, let me get off my second high horse, okay, and do the job for you that they should have done. All right, let's get into some overriding principles first. And some of these you're responsible for. We can't dump all of this on the web designers. The first thing, and these are in no particular order, is short paragraphs. We're looking at 2 or 3 sentences at the most. You're never going to get an A from your English teacher, all right, when writing for your website and also for ebooks. People can barely read at all nowadays. So if you put a massive blob of text in front of them, they immediately think, oh man, this is too hard. I'm going to find an easier website to look at. Couple that with the fact that most people are looking at your site on cell phones and tablets, and you've got a mess on your hands if you have real long paragraphs. I see sites all the time that one paragraph fills up 3 screens on my cell phone without a break. No one's ever going to read text like that. Plus, people get eye strain and headaches when reading on a screen, which brings me to my next overriding principle of white space. You must leave plenty of white space between paragraphs and at the right side of paragraphs and between bullets and generally all over your site. This sends an instant message to the visitor that the site is easy to look at, so they stay longer. Another important concept that's been going around the web for a while is called glanceable content. This means that someone can just glance at your site and see what it's all about. This is important on home pages and blog postings, so maybe you have a tagline or a headline grabs the person and in literally fractions of a second to make them want to read more. Now here's one that drives me crazy. It's called text contrast. The highest text contrast is simple black on white. There are contrast checkers on the web, and I'm going to link to one in the show notes, but quite honestly, I never even figured out how to use it. I just use my eyes. If the text jumps off the page and is very prominent on top of the background, it's okay with me. I see so many examples of like small gray text on light blue or gray backgrounds. And it might look cool, but it's almost impossible to read without straining. This is no good. Also, text over busy photos is bad. Then there's another thing where you have to know about links. See, an unclicked link in a browser is one color, and then when you click on it, it changes colors to remind you you've already clicked on that link, and it stays that way for I don't know how long. So sometimes the links are hard to see to start with if you put them in and try to be cool putting them in. And then sometimes after they're clicked, they disappear and fade into the background, or they just look terrible. They're hardly readable. So you got to watch that too. Really, folks, you got to get your ego out of cool websites and get your head around websites that can easily convey your message. So I got some links that I'm going to put in the show notes. One is called Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So there it shows you about text and things to make it accessible for people with sight disabilities. And also, I'll have a link to that contrast checker. But really, like I said, if you just sit there and look at your site and divorce yourself from that it's your site, you can see, oh man, that is kind of hard to read. I need to make a higher contrast or have a white background, black text, not gray text. That's terrible. All right, the last overriding principle is now this isn't the last part of this episode. This is the last intro to the episode. The last overriding principle is to avoid jargon. Now, I'm pretty sure in the early days, I was the one that coined the term brain stoppers as it applied to websites. I don't know if people have used that for other terms, but as it applied to websites. See, anytime you use industry jargon when writing for non-industry potential customers and clients, you're causing them to have trouble reading your message. In ebooks, generally, I tell someone if they really need to use an industry term to define it the first time they use it. But see, that doesn't work on a website because you never know where they're going to enter your site. They may not have seen your definition of that industry jargon. I mean, you just can't assume they are all going to enter at your homepage. So just avoid jargon. All right, let's get into the specific of things now. I see all the time, and I would probably find one or many of these mistakes if I reviewed your website, which I am happy to do. I've got a program where I'll review the outside, and my tech guys will review the inside, or all the coding stuff, and give you a full report of what needs fixed. And I'll even estimate for you how much it should cost so you don't get robbed when you do try to fix things up. All right, here we go. Get into the specifics of readability. One thing I see all the time, text is too wide. See, there are readability rules. One is the wider a line of text and the smaller the font, the less readable the text is. I see this all the time. This applies more to when people are reading on a laptop or desktop. Now, you can look at this yourself. Just pull your site up on a laptop or desktop and review the whole site in the paragraph text. If you look at a paragraph on your site and you feel like you're watching a tennis match, okay, with your eyes and even your head moving back and forth, guess what? Your text is too wide. You must constrain it by putting pictures or graphics beside it, or changing the margins, and we don't use this too much anymore, putting it in tables. All right, next thing is centering text. Centering is fine for headlines and major subheadings. Anywhere else, it's considered amateurish and hard to read. I don't think I would center more than 2 lines, and that would be a big old subheading or a headline. All right, next is ragged right text. See, in word processing, you normally have 4 choices when formatting paragraph text. Left justified, centered, right justified, and fully justified. You see these little icons when you're formatting text in your word processor. Justified means the text lines up perfectly on the edges. Now, for websites and ebooks, we want left justified, ragged right. Fully justified is in printed books. See, quality printed books are typeset, which is a really sophisticated, fancy way to format text. Well, this doesn't work on a web page or an ebook. There is no typesetting. The ragged right means the text does not line up perfectly on the right-hand side. This eliminates weird word spacing in your text and opens up that wonderful white space that I mentioned earlier. Oh, and one more thing for you older folks who learned how to type on a typewriter. Clickety, 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 right? Now, we were taught to put 2 spaces after a period. Well, that went out 100 years ago, right, when word processing was invented. You now only put 1 space after a period. Now, you can fix all of these in a document by doing a search and replace. So you search for period, space, space, and replace it with period, space. But here's the thing. If you've been doing this for years, good luck in breaking the habit of typing that way in the first place. Okay. Yeah, you can do it, though. I did it. All right, let's talk about fonts. Now, what I'm going to tell you now, I got from Penn State University, has an accessibility section on their website, and I put the link to it here in the very good link to go to, too. It has lots of information. So they said their general recommendations for online reading is a sans serif font. Those are the ones that don't have little curly cues at the top and bottom, or, where on the edges, like Arial and Verdana. They're considered more legible than serif fonts like Times New Roman. And also, you don't want narrow fonts or decorative fonts. They're okay, but they got to be reserved for headlines where they're real big so that they don't, just jam together and they're hard to read. Now, I'm going to give you some fonts here. Verdana, Helvetica, Calibri, Lucida is a new one used on Macs, Tahoma, Georgia, and then Comic Sans. I kind of like it because I'm kind of a goofball, but if you have a site designed for younger audiences, Comic Sans is a good font. Now, the next ones are only for big stuff like headings and subheadings. That would be Arial Black and Arial Narrow. Now, a couple things I don't want you to do on your fonts. I do not want italics. See, your screens are made up of vertical and horizontal little dots called pixels. And when you start cutting at an angle across these pixels, things get fuzzy and ruin the look of your site. Yeah, you could have a giant italic in a graphic where this doesn't count, what I was just saying. But generally avoid italics and absolutely avoid underlining. See, underlining on a website or ebook means that the piece of text is clickable. Well, if you just did it for emphasis and it's not clickable, people will think something's wrong and either complain or have a poor thought of your quality. So no underlining. You can use bold and color. See, color is free in ebooks and websites, so use it judiciously. Don't make it look like a circus tent, but use color and bold to emphasize. You can change the size of the font. And graphics are great too, in that they can break up the text, leave more white space. Always put a caption under it and avoid stock photos. There's been a big backlash against the obligatory Asian person, black person, Indian person, and they're quite obvious nowadays. So I'd rather see you shoot pictures of you working with clients or doing something. and then put a caption under, hey, here's me working with so-and-so, and we got great results. Check it out. So the captions, they've done retinal studies where the people look at the pictures or the graphics, look at the caption, and the caption should make them want to read the text. So that helps your readability right there. All right, now before I get into, I want to give you a readability test tool and talk about bullets. I want to remind you that I have the longest running, most successful, most unique mentor program ever in the field of internet and digital marketing. It's been running for over 20 years now. I hit multimillionaire status around the year 2000, doing exactly what I teach in my school, and exactly what I do in my mentor program. The difference is that I'll actually work with you. Nobody else at my level will. They won't even talk to you, okay? So, and it's all one-on-one. We don't do anything group here except for your trip to the retreat center after the pandemic hits. If you're in my program, you spend an immersion weekend here, which nobody does. You live in this estate home with me, and we work with you. We have a TV studio, we shoot video, all of this stuff. And then for a whole year, you have access to me and my entire staff, who some of them have been here 12 years, one-on-one, to tutor you through and make all this stuff happen for you. Nobody on earth can put a finger on this program. And also, it's affordable in that you pay an entry fee, but then I don't get my big money. I mean, people like me were charging 50 or 100 grand up front and then disappearing on you, where I don't get my big money unless you make big money. So we have a program that allows you to make money before I get any more money. And then it's capped, so you're not stuck with me forever. So it's really unique. And plus, it gives you a scholarship that you can gift to someone or use yourself if you'd like to attend the school and have a really structured ABC kind of thing. So having both is great. But one guy joined the mentor program, gave the scholarship to his daughter, and she's making $6,000 a month as a side hustle. Okay, so it's very, very powerful. All right, so check all that out at greatinternetmarketingtraining.com, greatinternetmarketingtraining.com. Give me a call and we'll discuss it. All right, let's get back to the last couple things I want to tell you about. In the show notes, I have a readability test tool where you can put in a web page or a website, and it will give you scores on your readability and tell you what to fix. So that's going to be in the show notes. It's too long to say right here. And this is episode 312. So if you ever want to get to the show notes, which you should, it's screwthecommute.com/312 will take you to the show notes for this episode. All right, last thing I want to tell you about is bullets. First of all, make sure you format bullets correctly. A bullet should stand out to the side, and then the text is justified to the right of the bullet. Don't ever let the text go under the bullet. That means that you did it wrong. You look amateurish. It doesn't get the job done like it's supposed to. Bullets are supposed to stand out. And in this case, you're putting white space at the left and the right. So it makes it really stand out. And then put space between the bullets. See, if most default bullets just line up one underneath with no spaces in between them. So if you put a bunch of them, it looks like just a blob of text with a bunch of dots next to it. That's terrible. Now, the way typically in a word processor or on a web, you add space between a bullet without adding another bullet. See, if you just hit enter at the end of part of your bullet, it's going to make another bullet. So typically you hit shift enter, and then it's called a line break, and it comes down and then you keep typing, all right, without the bullet, or it'll add a space and then you hit enter and that'll put the next bullet. So that opens space between your bullets. And read the transcription for this episode, or it would be good for you to read the transcription, print it out, and then highlight all these tips and use it as a checklist to go over your own site. All right, so if you carefully review or you have me do it for you, the things that were covered in this episode, I'm guaranteeing you visitors will stay at your site much longer, consuming your content, and you'll have a much greater chance of turning them into customers and clients. All right, that's it for this episode. Check me out at greatinternetmarketingtraining.com. Can't wait to hear from you. We'll catch you on the next episode. See you later.